Okay, good morning. So today we'll be starting with the first class of PSIR, and today's session will be largely based on how to go through the PSIR syllabus. So how to approach this PSIR syllabus, what is the content that will be required, and also we'll give a brief input about how the notes will be given in the class and how to organize and how to read about. So just I'll open the syllabus copy first. So you can see first, I think both of you have an idea that there'll be two papers, and each paper there'll be two parts, part A, part B, and in each part we say it is related to one subtopic. So you take part A, it is largely related to the Western political thought, theory, ideas. It also has Indian political thought. Now I have marked, I'll be sharing this document on the group also later. This is to show that there is a lot of overlap of the syllabus. Okay, because some people had concerns that the syllabus might be too big. Uh, but I'll show you that why the syllabus is not too big, because they've repeated a lot of elements. So first we'll just go through the syllabus, then I'll see the overlap. So you take part A, you have political theory, meaning and approaches. So we need to start with basics, like what is a theory? Okay, in general also I think you would have read different theories. In physics you have read theories, in geography you would have read theories. So theory means a person has given a particular idea and he is trying to explain certain things, and any theory might not be completely perfect. So for example, let us take the end of Indus Valley civilization. Right, I think for most of you ancient history has happened. So how has the Indus Valley civilization ended? What is the explanation? Why it ended? There are different theories, means different ideas, different possible explanations. Aryan invasion theory, or you can say epidemics, which led to large scale killings. So here also there will be certain theories in that regard, political theories, largely mean on political ideas. So when we say political science in that regard, you might question, sir, why it is called as political science? So what is scientific about politics? Though we say social science and natural science, they are different. In natural science like chemistry, physics, biology, etc., what is one common thing you will find? Hmm. What is one common thing you will find in physics, chemistry, etc.? They are also called as science subjects, right? No, in politics also there is practical approach. They are more factual. They come into the sphere of what we say true or false. Very important. For example, 2 plus 2, it has to be 4. It can't be anything else. But when you say social science in that regard, social science does not come into the aspect of only of what we say true or false. It also deals with the question of good or bad. And good or bad is based on values. So for example, if this class is good or bad, you cannot have one answer. Maybe some people say, okay, the class was good. Some people say, yes, so it's your personal opinion, right? In social science, we can study politics in a scientific way. So to give you an example, now Lok Sabha elections is going to come. There is something called as opinion poll. Never mind. They are going to collect data in that regard. That is science part. Means the methodology what you are using. But now when people are collecting that part, they might say this party might come to power or this political party might come to power. That is science part of it. But again we can say, we can deal with questions that if this party comes to power, what are the good elements or what are the bad elements? So when we say political science in that regard, using certain scientific method to understand politics. So when we start studying political science, first it was called as political philosophy. So if you take Plato, Socrates, etc., they largely spoke about political philosophy. Philosophies means what? It's about your perspective of life. Okay, in philosophy, it is way of life, what is good or what is bad. But the subject started getting scientific elements from Aristotle, Machiavelli, and later on there's a phase called as behavioralism in the subject, where science becomes an, what you can say, part of the subject. So today we can say in political science, it involves both philosophy as well as science. So for example, exit poll, opinion poll, we need to use mathematical formulas, etc., or data for data collection in that regard. But at the same time, the subject does not only deal with that, the subject also deals with, okay, what is a good government, what is the duties of the government, etc., etc. So here when we say theory, meanings and approaches, we'll be trying to understand what are the different approaches of understanding politics. So that will go in detail once we start. Then you have theories of state, liberal, neoliberal, Marxist, pluralist, post-colonial, feminist. Then you have idea of justice, equality, rights. But we'll be starting the subject not with these elements. We'll be starting with this Western political thought. Remember, we are not going the syllabus this way. We'll be starting with Western political thought. We'll be studying about Plato, Aristotle, Machiavelli, Hobbes, Locke, J.S. Mill, Marx, Gramsci, and Hannah Arendt. Now, question arises here: what will be studying about them? So, some people will have, sir, should we know who is their father, who is their mother, where were they born, which time period they were born? See, that's what I told. In UPSC, one key thing is that you always need to understand how to approach the subject. Okay, there is no subject called as easy or tough. It becomes easy or tough if we know how to, approach it. If we don't know how to approach it, or let us take a reading of the syllabus copy purely. Now, some people might read the syllabus copy, Plato, Aristotle, Machiavelli. There's so much to read about them. In fact, there's not much to read about them, and in fact, you will enjoy reading about them, because here we are not bothered. Because if you take Aristotle, Aristotle has written a lot of things on biology also. That we are not reading. That is not required for our syllabus. We are only concerned about political ideas given by these people. Only political ideas. So you don't need to worry about where this fellow is born, who is his father, etc. That will be toned in class, because when we say you're studying about what? Political thought. Political thought means what? And political idea that these people have given. So to understand why these people gave this political idea, you need to understand their social background, that which time period they came, okay, what were the conditions during those time period, how those time period influenced. For example, take Gandhi and Ambedkar himself as an example, because I think you will have some exposure to Gandhi and Ambedkar by now, even not of Plato. If you take Gandhi and Ambedkar, if you see Ambedkar and Gandhi, they differed in their ideas. How? For example, Gandhi was a firm believer in decentralization. Right? He believed in decentralization. Everything should be given to what? The power should be transferred to the common man. And he believed in the idea of village republics. Means every village should be self-sustaining. Look at Ambedkar. Ambedkar disagreed with it. He told there cannot be village republics and all. Villages cannot be the source of development, and Ambedkar proposed for what? More of a centralized approach. Means what? Central government should play a key role. If you look into our constitution also, you have certain degree of power with the center compared to the states. Largely why? Because Ambedkar was the chairperson of the drafting committee. Now the idea arises, why did Gandhi think that way, and why did Ambedkar think that way? Again, you can say it is their personal experience. Gandhi was born into an, what you can say, maybe an intermediate caste. Ambedkar was born into more of a lower caste. The experience of a lower caste within a village lifestyle is different. Caste system is very strong in villages compared to urban areas. So that is why Ambedkar was not a firm believer in the idea of village republics in that regard. He told if India has to improve, it has to urbanize, it has to modernize, etc. Why? Because again, that's what I said, their socio-economic background will also play a key role in influencing their ideas. So in that regard, you will have to know during which time period they came, what was the conditions during that time period, and what were the ideas they gave during that time period. But for the exam, that background and all is not so important, the idea is more important. So for example, you take a person like Plato. Plato ages back, he belongs to what we say Greece, present day Greece. That time he belongs to a city state. They are called as Athens. So Plato was a opposer of democracy. He believed that democracy was the worst form of government at that time period, because democracy is not something which is it's not something newly created. Democracy has existed since ages. Okay, I think even when you read ancient history in Vedic period, if you take, there were democratic institutions, sabha, samiti, vidhata, etc. So in Greece also there was democracy, rulers were elected, but the model of democracy was different. It was not like what we have today, representative model. It was more direct, people participating. But this fellow, he considered democracy to be worst form of government. Why? Because certain events which happens. So let me show one the chronology. Plato was deeply influenced by his teacher Socrates. You can see Socrates' student was Plato, Plato's student is Aristotle. So when we say we are going to study the Greek political thought, we are going to largely study three of them. Socrates is not there in the syllabus, but you have to have a basic idea of Socrates because to understand Plato. Socrates was considered one of the most intelligent man on the earth. Okay. Usually we say the Socratic way of truth means what? Socrates did not agree or accept anything as the truth unless there is an argument. Okay. Argument, counter argument, unless both parties will be able to arrive that this is the truth. But Socrates' idea at that point of time, telling ages back in ancient times, was not largely acceptable to the Greek society. And Socrates was killed. Killed in the sense he was punished by the state. He was made to consume poison, that is hemlock in that regard. And his death had a huge impact on Plato. Why it had a huge impact on Plato? Plato felt that the rulers who are there, they were not skilled enough in governance. And the conditions in Athens was also deteriorating. They lost a battle, corruption had increased, etc. You can say Plato was something like the Batman who wanted to save the Gotham city from disintegration. So he gave an idea. That idea is only called as Philosopher King. The whole book he wrote a book called as Republic. The whole book is about how to choose a ruler. And in that book, he rules out democracy is not an ideal form of government, because he says for democracy to be functioning well, you need to have common men who need to have knowledge about what is right or what is wrong. If common man does not know what is right or wrong, they can be easily misled. And he says that in Athens, because common people did not have so much knowledge, people with oratory skills, etc., they were able to mislead the people and came to power. And he raises a question. Socrates already would have raised a question. He says that, do you want a ship you're traveling through? Should the ship be driven by a person who is an expert in ship driving? Or do you want any Tom, Dick and Harry to come and drive the ship? Obviously the answer will be, we need a person who's skilled enough to do it. So he says the same thing. Ship represents the state. Do you need the state to be driven by some person just because people have chosen him? Or do you need person who is skilled enough to, what you can say, lead the state or rule the state? So his whole book Republic is about how he is going to choose that ruler, where he makes education compulsory for the ruler. That we'll understand once we start going into Plato. The whole idea of Plato is only that much what we are going to read. It's not something which is a reality. That's an idea that was proposed by him. And in those ideas, there are criticism also. His own student, Aristotle, criticized his idea. Okay. So the whole subject of political science, when you start with Western political thought, you are going to study one person, his idea, shortcomings of those ideas. Obviously, another person will make an improvement over those ideas. So that is how we'll be studying Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. Then we'll be going into studying Machiavelli. He's from Italy. He's comparable to what we say in our country, what we say Kautilya, Arthashastra. So if you take Nehru in his book Discovery of India, he wrote Kautilya is the Indian Machiavelli. But you had a historian called as Upinder Singh. She told it is wrong on part of Nehru to call Kautilya the Indian Machiavelli. The reason is that Kautilya wrote the book Arthashastra ages before Machiavelli wrote the book Prince. So he told it should be the other way around. What is that? Machiavelli is the Italian Kautilya. But why we are telling him Kautilya or Machiavelli? Their ideas are almost similar. So when we look at Socrates and Plato, they largely speak about ethics, role of values in politics. Machiavelli speaks about there is no room for value in politics. Machiavelli is more what you can say. He is mainly bothered about power. He sees politics is all about capturing power, retaining power, continuing power, and he says for that anything can be done. You should not judge it whether it is right or wrong. So in present day politics, what we say, when we say that this person is corrupt, you are taking him to the party. In politics, that won't work. He is corrupt, he is not corrupt, secondary. What matters is that can he get you the votes? Plain and simple. If you look at Indian Parliament in that regard, 46% of India's MPs have criminal charges, and 26% of them serious criminal charges against them. So why do political parties give more number of tickets to people with criminal background? Plain and simple. In Indian politics, muscle power and money power plays a very key role. And only those who have that muscle power, money power can get you those votes, and that is why that is nothing but Machiavellian or Kautilian politics in that regard. Don't give any room for values in politics. There is no room for values. So he says that you should not judge political actions as good or bad. Whatever you do in the interest of the state, it will be good. But we need to understand that why Machiavelli gave that idea during this century. So you can say now the trend is changing. With Socrates, Plato and all, they strongly believe that what values and politics go hand in hand. With Machiavelli, he completely separated them. He told, don't judge political action based on values. And why we say, when we say Narendra Modi's politics in general, when we compare, it lot of overlaps with Machiavelli. Because if you look at lot of elements what Machiavelli said, it's not only with Narendra Modi, any political leader like Indira Gandhi, etc., they all follow these Machiavellian methods. Means they are more realistic than idealistic in politics. Means if you take Machiavelli in a book Prince, he says that whenever a prince, he goes meets public, he should always there be a grandeur. Why grandeur? He says that common man will be blown away. So if you look at Narendra Modi's first visit to USA in that regard, it was conducted in Madison Square Garden with a huge grandeur. Why? Because he said that is how the prince, means the book Prince is written for the ruler to know how to rule the people. And Machiavelli is more what you can say stringent in his recommendation. He says that people, for him, humans are how, he says man is selfish, egoistic, materialistic, avaricious, greedy, and they don't have loyalty. So he says that if you want to keep people happy, it is not through professing morality. He says that don't touch the properties of your citizens. Why? Because he says man is such a way that if you kill his father, he might forgive you. But if you snatch away his property, he'll never forgive you throughout his life. So these are certain hardcore recommendations what Machiavelli tells you the prince. Whether Machiavelli found his prince or not, he didn't find. It was a book which was written that how to rule, the art of ruling, statecraft, what we say. So Kautilya's book also, if you take, it is also a book on statecraft. But Kautilya's book is much more in depth. Means he only does not speak about the qualities of a ruler. Kautilya also speaks about what? Political economy, what kind of policies the state has to bring, how to maintain the economic base. Because if you take Kautilya, we read something called a Saptanga theory. So he says that how an organism will have 7 limbs. So every state will have 7 organs. Army, what you can say, finance, ministers, and the soul of the state is the king, Nabi or the Rajan, what he says. That you will study when we study Indian political thought. But when you study Kautilya and Machiavelli, you find a lot of similarities between both of their ideas, but there are also differences because he is from 16th century and Kautilya is ages back. So this is one more scholar what we are going to study, Machiavelli. And Machiavelli is a very short thinker. It's not very in depth. Largely what is his idea of politics. Then we are going to read about 3 English political philosophers, Hobbes, Locke and J.S. Mill. We also call them as, especially Hobbes and Locke along with Rousseau, we call them as social contract theorists. So there we need to understand what is social contract. when you take the ideology of liberalism, I think you have come across, right? Liberalism. So you can say the ideology of liberalism started to evolve or develop through writings of Hobbes, Locke, Rousseau, and James Mill. John Locke is considered as the father of liberalism. Then we are going to read about Karl Marx. So if there is any one ideology that is named after a person, that is Marx. And that is what we say, Marx is like God to half of the world, but he's also seen as a devil by the other half of the world. Means Marx is somebody, either you hate him, either you like him. And Marx ideas we need to learn, because he was the idea behind the working class movements, and the idea of Russian Revolution, etc. is largely based on the ideas of Karl Marx. So we need to study about Karl Marx, his ideas, what ideas he gave, why he gave those ideas. And you can say Karl Marx was a critic of liberalism and capitalism. Then you have Antonio Gramsci. He's an Italian scholar. He has modified certain ideas of Karl Marx. Okay, because Karl Marx, what he had predicted was that when capitalism reaches its peak, revolution is bound to happen. But if you see, actually revolution did not happen. Revolution only happened in Russia and China, in few places. But in Western Europe, where capitalism has reached its peak, you don't see the kind of revolution what Marx had predicted. And that is why many started criticizing Marx as what the God who has failed. And Gramsci gave the answer that why that revolution did not happen, because he told Marx had ignored certain elements within his theory. And that is covered by Gramsci. And Gramsci gives a very important concept called as hegemony. What is hegemony? Ideological domination. So, when we say you exercise power, because we are going to read about concept of power. What is power? Your ability to make somebody else change their actions or influence them. So how can you exercise power? So now let us think for now this fellow, he says that, I say right answer. Right answer. He'll say no, I won't write. So I'll remove my belt and belt him thrice. Then he'll write his answer. Plain, that is physical force what you can use. Or you can say that I will tell him that I'll give you 100 rupees if you write one answer. Maybe for economic incentive, he is going to write the answer. Or the other way I can exercise power is that I make him believe that, I am, whatever I say, if you do, you are going to clear UPSC. And he has that firm faith. Oh, sir, ಏನು ಹೇಳೋರೆ ಅದು ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ನಾನು ಪಕ್ಕಾ ರ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಬಂದೇ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. He will write. So Gramsci spoke about this ideological power, how ideological power was used by capitalism in that regard, which Marx had not brought into his theory. So he gave this concept called as hegemony, and that we are going to study what is hegemony, etc., and how hegemony operates. So if you take Indian national movement, till Gandhi came into the picture, especially these moderates who were there, moderates always felt that this British coming into India is nothing for India's good. So it had Surendranath Banerjee, who wrote saying that British is a God sent force to India. Why? It is ideological power. British had brought something called as the white man's burden. They had told Indians are uncivilized. They had told, we'll make you like next Britain. We will bring education, we'll bring modernization, we'll bring a lot of changes in that regard. And that is why Indians also, many educated Indians also felt that what? Okay, British have come to India, this is a good thing what is going to happen for India. And it took Gandhi to build a counter narrative to prove to the people that British is not something that they're going to do for Indians, they are just ideologically blinded Indians. And that is why you can say Gandhi, he built counter hegemony. So he built what? He told we have to be self-sufficient. We should not depend on British industries. That is why he brought what? This handloom. Swadeshi movement. Swadeshi was not that Gandhi only brought, it was there before also, but Gandhi took it to next level. So when we say hegemony, hegemony is what? Ideological domination, ruling over somebody with their consent. So for example, you take Nityananda. Now you can say, normal people will tell, how can this fellow sound sensible? Nityananda, if you see videos, in one video he will tell, I asked my professor that you come and you will teach by looking into the book how students can write the answer without looking into the book. And he say one subject, one faculty is there. And he'll say, how can you expect students to read all subjects and go write the exam? Now for some who might say, okay, that is sensible, or you believe in Nityananda in that regard, you don't question what he says. He says, no, I'm training monkeys to speak. See, that's what I say. Ideology is something which you can attract people and you can make them listen to what you say, they won't question it. If you take Hitler in that regard, how could Hitler rule Germany? You're going to mind. You cannot force everybody, you cannot do. Any dictator cannot hold anybody only through military force. There will be always an ideological force. So if you take Hitler had a minister called as Goebbels. He was made the propaganda minister. He is one of Hitler's loyalists in that regard. Means he was deeply impressed by Hitler's ideology. And when you can say at the end of Second World War, when Hitler's defeat was imminent, Hitler decided to commit suicide. And he asked Goebbels, because Goebbels was married and they had four or five children in that regard. He asked Goebbels to leave Germany and go escape. But what did Goebbels do? He and his wife both consumed poison, and they also poisoned all their 4 or 5 children, and they wrote a letter saying that we don't want our children to grow in a country without Hitler. So that we say this is the power of ideology, what Gramsci spoke about, hegemony. So you'll understand what is hegemony and why the idea of hegemony, what Gramsci gave, is crucial in understanding that Marx's prediction why didn't come true. So he largely speaks about how capitalist forces, they use culture, they use media, they used education, etc. to control people's mind. See, when you say power, power need not be all over. You control somebody's mind. That is the biggest power what you can do. Media, you have media in your hand. Obviously, right? So why media is a very powerful tool in country today? See, for example, it might be social media also. Today we are not only looking at TV media. Social media also is a very powerful tool. Why? Because today people are increasingly becoming what? Media driven. So obviously something is happening somewhere. How do you know about what is happening there? It is through media. So obviously what the media feeds into the public, that is how your thinking is also controlled. Again a point. So for example, let us take, for example, you are using Facebook. Now let us pick Mark Zuckerberg is my friend in that regard. Now I will tell Mark Zuckerberg in everybody's feed, put political science, NIKHIL Gevada best, NIKHIL Gevada best, etc. Over a period of time, I will become the best. Obviously, right? You have not come to the class, you don't know what is happening there, etc. You are only seeing through media what is the outcome. So hegemony can be built using media power, using cultural forces, etc. That is what Gramsci spoke about. So that we'll understand that what Gramsci spoke and why his ideas improved. And the only woman scholar in Western political thought is Hannah Arendt. She's an Jew who escaped Israel and she went and settled in America. Largely her writings is about, her experience with Hitler's fascism. Because in fascism, it was anti-Semitism, means they targeted the Jews. So she largely speaks about why people should be very proactive in politics, why they should participate in politics. She gives a new definition of idea of power. So these are the 9 scholars that we will be starting with. And for them, notes will be provided in classroom itself. Okay, not dictation. I will upload the notes whenever we are going to start with which thinker, the previous day on the portal. You need to download it. Any kind of new value addition, that will be dictated in the class that you can take down. But anything else, you can just directly go through the notes, read it, and in class we'll be largely discussing. One thing. Second thing, what we'll be doing, writing a lot of PYQs, previous year questions. So if you take in UPSC, there are always 2 important things. One is your syllabus copy that you need to always have with you. So anyway you will get it online also, but I'll share this document because here I've added certain things where the overlap is there. Second thing is a previous year question bank. Any book which is any question bank, you have it with you. So after every scholar what we read, we look at questions. So starting days you don't write any questions. In class we'll sit and discuss that how to approach this question. Why? Because why I'm telling not only to write answer is that, see, when you read Plato, when you attempt to write an answer on Plato, if you have not read Aristotle, your answer will be incomplete. Okay, one, because every scholar, his view can be used as a criticism of the previous scholar. So that is why we say we'll discuss the questions, but once we complete Western political thought, then we'll start writing answer. You have to maintain a separate notebook. And here the class design will be Monday to Friday there will be classes. Saturday will be something called as, from this time we are introducing called as mentorship day. Because only if you, what I've realized that over the years is that only you coming to classroom, attending, sitting class, it is of only limited use. Okay. But we'll also keep every Saturday as what? Mentorship day. On Saturday, we are only going to do mentorship, discussion, answer writing, any doubt, clarification, what has happened in that particular week. And for online students also, it will be both online and offline. It's not that online students might feel that we can't be able to interact. You can be able to interact because I'll be sharing my number also. If you have doubt, you can call during the mentorship time. So every Saturday will be mentorship day. And we are going to sit, we are going to discuss, like we have to say it should be a collective study for preparing for the exam. And how many of you have come here to become political science experts? You should not aim to become a political science expert. Your main goal is to what? Clear the exam and score marks. Now coming to here, that's what I told. So we'll be starting with what? The Western political thought. Then we'll be going into political theory, meaning and approaches. Then we'll be going into the chapter on ideologies. Political ideologies, liberalism, socialism, Marxism, fascism, Gandhism and feminism. You can tell, sir, why not we go into state? The reason is that to understand theories of state, if you look here, again you have what? Liberal, neoliberal, Marxist, pluralist, post-colonial, feminist. So that's why I told, to look at these two are different chapters. But when you study political ideologies, it is nothing but it is the same. They only added one extra state. You're getting a point? It is not different. If you take a liberal theory of state, it is nothing but liberalism. Marxist theory of state, what is Karl Marx view on state? So that's why I told many people what they'll think is that syllabus is huge. But that's what I'm telling you. If you have read the chapter number, 8, chapter number 2 is nothing but same. And when you read the notes, you will find that the content is almost similar. 80% content is almost same to same. It is not anything extra. Then we'll go into concepts such as justice, equality, and rights. So you can find these words are also there in the Indian preamble. So here you will be broadly understanding what is the idea of justice, what is the idea of equality, what is the idea of rights. Now why I told after ideologies we'll do, because when we read ideologies, you will understand there are different ideas of justice. There is a liberal idea of justice, there is a socialist idea of justice, there is a Marxist idea of justice, there is a fascist idea of justice, there is a Gandhian idea of justice, there is a feminist idea of justice. Get mind? So if you have read this chapter, that's what I told. Chapter number 10, chapter number 8 are the soul of the subject. If you know these two chapters very, very well, now all other chapters are pretty easy, and many times what will happen is that even if you have not read this chapter so well, you can still write answer based on the knowledge what you possess in this. That is why we will always start with what? Western political thought and political ideologies. So some people what they will do is that they will start with part B. That's a wrong approach. Why? Now why sometimes they will start with part B? See, in any optional paper, part A is always theoretical. Part B is always application. Any optional paper you take, anthro, pub-bad, political science, etc. Now whenever you do a theory, especially for science background students, initial days, they might find theory a bit difficult. So what they will do now, we have to increase admissions, right? So one thing we'll do, we'll start with Indian government and politics. Now why student will start feeling very easy? Why? Because you would have read polity and now you are doing same thing, so it is almost same. But actually that's a wrong approach. Why that's a wrong approach? If you study these chapters, rest everything is pretty easy because it is nothing but application of these same concepts. And when you start reading them, they're not so difficult. Amen. You will now really understand what is the idea of liberal. When you read in Indian preamble, the idea of equality, now you will truly understand what is the idea of equality because different people have given different concepts. Understood? So, 9 and, 10 and 8 are the soul of the subject. You have to know. So, once we do that, justice, equality, rights, again you can say rights. They are telling a meaning and theories. Plain and simple. Liberal theory of rights, socialist theory of rights, Marxist theory of rights, fascist theory of rights, Gandhian theory of rights, feminist theory of rights. Even just application of same thing again and again. And then we'll be going into what? The idea of democracy. So I think in democracy in general, democracy is people for the government of the, government of the people, by the people, for the people. That's a general understanding of democracy. But here we'll look into classical and contemporary theory of democracy. Classical means I told you, like Greek period. There was idea of democracy, that is classical. Contemporary means today, the liberal democracy, Marxist idea of democracy. China also calls itself as democracy. China also calls itself democracy. But we have to know different theories. There are different theories. Like, to give you an example, there is one theory called as elitist theory. It is given by 2 or 3 scholars. Mosca, Pareto, you have Robert Michaels. Slightly what they say is different, but in a summary, all 3 of them, they tell one thing. For them, democracy, present day democracy, what is there? It is nothing but government by the elites. They say only for namesake we say government of the people, by the people and for the people. Power is never with the people. Maximum what people will do, they'll go to voting booth and they'll vote. So you have a person called as Rousseau. He says that people are free only once in 5 years. Rest of them, they are all elected representatives, they will do everything. And they say power will never come to the common man, power will be keep circulating between the elites. So if you take BJP in the Congress in that regard, now power will be circulating between them. So obviously within them, again it is only the few elites who will get power, not common man is going to get power. Or you cannot say a party's karyakarta will be powerful. So that is one theory, whether it is right or whether it is wrong, it is etc. Because that theory says that naturally also there cannot be equality between all. So they say, example, you take a group, within a group, you might start a group saying that we are all our friends, we are all our equals, etc. But what they say over a period of time, within that group, those who are more proactive, those who are more charismatic, they will start dominating the group. Or people in the group will start listening to what they say. Say that it is natural. Understood? That we need to understand what are the different theories of democracy. Then we'll go into Indian political thought. Dharma Shastra, Artha Shastra, Buddhist traditions, Syed Ahmad Khan, Sri Aurobindo, Gandhi, Ambedkar and M.N. Roy. So as I told, many of them you have already read you will be reading in modern history. The difference here is that again, we don't need to be worried about where is Gandhi born, when Gandhi was born, etc. etc. That is not the core concern of the subject. What is our core concern here? See, they have given, Gandhi if you take even is given spiritual ideas. We are not going into spiritual ideas of Gandhi. We are only limiting ourselves to what? Political ideas. You know what do you mean by political ideas? Same thing. What he has told about power, what he has told about democracy, what they have told about justice. Plain and simple. So we'll be going to Dharma Shastra, Artha and Buddhist tradition. When you say Buddhist tradition, don't think that we are going to read Buddhism here. Sir, ancient history should I know? Only Buddhist political ideas. So Gautama Buddha, who was there, he did not give only spiritual ideas, he gave a lot of political ideas as well. For example, if you take the Buddhist Sanghas which are there are examples of deliberative democracy. Means in Sanghas, people discuss, then they will take a decision. That's an example of deliberative democracy. Or if you take Buddhism also emphasizes a lot on soft power. If you take King Ashoka, after the Kalinga war in that regard, he gave up violence in that regard and he brought a policy called as what? That he wanted to become a conqueror of hearts, not conqueror of lands. And you can say that he sent his own children, that is daughter and son, to promote Buddhism to neighboring lands. Even today, if you take India's strong relations with Southeast Asia, what? Hinduism and Buddhism in that regard. And Syed Ahmad Khan. So you read about social religious reform movements in modern history. There you will read about Syed Ahmad Khan. He is one of the reformers among the Muslim community. So we need to look into his ideas. What are the important political ideas given by him? Then you have Sri Aurobindo in that regard. So Sri Aurobindo, he was mainly, we can say, a revolutionary in that regard, and he has given what you can say, the idea of cultural nationalism. So British defined a nation differently. If you take the Western description of nation, nation is what? Nation state, territory, people, government, and you have sovereignty. But for Aurobindo Ghosh, nation is not a soulless machine. It has a soul. It comprises of people, and he gives something called as idea of cultural nationalism. So he says, nation is not a piece of land or mass of human being. Nation is not a figure of speech. Nation is not a figment of imagination. Nation is a living entity. It is mother of all, and he says that it is equivalent to goddess Durga. He compares India to what? Goddess. So we need to look into his idea, that why he gave such an idea, etc. Then you have Gandhi, Ambedkar, and M.N. Roy was the person who started the Communist Party in India. And M.N. Roy is also known for what? The first person to demand for a constituent assembly in 1934. So completing this part is your part A. If you know part A pretty well, rest of the syllabus is pretty easy. Why it is pretty easy? Now I will show you where is the overlap which is happening. So if you see, theories of state, liberal, neoliberal, Marxist, pluralist, and colonial feminist. So again it is repeating where? Political ideologies. And again if you see here, the approaches and study of international relations, idealist, realist, Marxist, functionist, system theory. Whatever you have read in part A, same thing will also repeat in paper 2. And similarly if you take here, what is that? Fascism, Gandhism, feminism, etc. So here let us look at GS paper 1. You have modern history from medieval century to present. This is your GS paper 1 syllabus. Now let us take political science part B. Political strategies of Indian freedom struggle, constitution to mass satyagraha, non-cooperation, civil disobedience, militant, revolutionary movements, peasant, workers movement, and perspectives of Indian national movement. Same thing you are also reading where? You are reading GS paper 1. Freedom struggle, various stages, important contributions from different parts of the country. So here, what we'll be focusing here morely on, in your modern history, GS in that regard, their micro informations are important, especially for prelims. But for political science, those kind of micro informations are not important. We are only looking at a broader level. So we take constitutionalism to mass satyagraha means what? Who followed the idea of constitutionalism? The moderates. Who followed the idea of mass satyagraha? Gandhi. We need to study the progressives. Why did the moderates fail? How the extremists came and why extremists failed? Then how Gandhi emerged as a leader. Non-cooperation movement, civil disobedience movement, militant and revolutionary movements, peasant and workers movement. So what do you need to study? Political strategies. Means what strategies they used? What were the positives? What are the negatives? Perspective of Indian national movement. So again, in part A, in that ideology chapter, you would have read something called as postmodernism. What do you mean by that? I don't know. Social science and science are different. In science, 2 plus 2 has to be 4, nothing else. Now when you look at Indian national movement, let us take, how many of you agree that Gandhi is the great? Not even one. Current only went off. How many of you agree? Okay, Gandhi is great. Okay, how many of you disagree? Gandhi is not great. Okay. How many of you agree Ambedkar is great? How many of you agree no, Ambedkar is not great? there cannot be a uniform opinion on that. Why they cannot be uniform? It depends upon what you are looking at. So when we say this postmodernism or post-structuralism, it believes that there is no absolute truth. They say absolute truth cannot be established. They are telling whatever you see is your perspective of the truth. That is what is true to you. It can be not true to others. Like Tipu Sultan, if you take, is he the tiger of Mysore or he is in what you can say massacred Hindus on a large scale? Both aspect evidence is there. So here when we look at different perspectives of Indian national movement, there can be different people viewing Indian national movement differently. You have liberal perspective, you have socialist perspective, you have Marxist perspective, you have radical humanist perspective, you have a Dalit perspective. So liberal perspective means people like Nehru in that regard, because they are all believer in liberalism, how they looked at the Indian national movement. Socialist perspective is Acharya Narendra Dev, these kind of people. Marxist, you have Karl Marx and M.N. Roy. And you have radical humanist, he's M.N. Roy only, because he changes his ideas. From a Marxist, he'll become a radical humanist. It's a new ideology brought by M.N. Roy. When you read M.N. Roy, you would have read about radical humanism. Dalit perspective, you have Periyar, Ambedkar, etc. That's what I told. When you look at the Indian national movement, there is no one perspective. 1857 revolt. For Savarkar, it was what? The first war of independence. But if you take for somebody like Marx, what was the 1857 revolt? He says that no, he says that it is nothing but it is a movement led by zamindars, etc., reactionary forces. It's not a revolutionary movement, he says. And if you take somebody like Britishers, historians, they call it what? Sepoy mutiny. They say it is a war between barbarians and civilized people. So, one event, there are multiple perspectives. So here we'll be looking into different perspective of Indian national movement. If you take Dalit perspective, like Ambedkar's writings in that regard, Ambedkar is highly critical of Congress and Gandhi, especially Gandhi, because he has written a book called as what Congress and the Gandhi have done to the untouchables. And his argument in this book is that, one, he disagrees with Gandhi's untouchability abolition techniques. For example, Ambedkar says that maximum what Gandhi did to the Dalits was that he told temple entry movement. But he says that none of Gandhian movements or Gandhian strategy did not have inter-caste dining. Second one, he'll tell what is Congress is nothing but, at that point of time, he says Congress is nothing but a Brahmins party. Means dominated by the upper caste. There was no representation lower caste. Or if you take Jyotiba Phule, he also comes under Dalit perspective. So he says that he says that if you look at the freedom struggle or the Indian freedom movement, he says that freedom for whom? He raises the question, freedom for whom? Okay, you are telling you are going to get freedom, but he says that that is nothing but power transfer from the British to the upper caste Indians. There is no change in the socio-economic condition of the lower caste. That is why this Jyotiba Phule, he says that what British Raj is better than the Peshwa Raj. British Raj means British rule in India was better to the untouchables compared to the Peshwas who are ruling. So we need to understand different perspective. Why they gave that perspective? Okay, to what degree we can agree with that perspective? You have Arun Shourie, who has written one more person. He has written a book called as Worshipping the False God. And he attacks Ambedkar in that book. He says that Ambedkar is an anti-national, and Ambedkar during the freedom struggle, he never, encouraged Gandhi. He only worked against Gandhi. But there is one more book which is written to counter Arun Shourie by Christopher Jefferlot in that regard, and Ramchandra Guha, who argue that Arun Shourie is wrong in his assessment in that regard. Why? Because he says that the book what he has written, it is not well researched. The reason why it is not well researched, though there was Gandhi and Ambedkar had their own differences in that regard, but Gandhi never called Ambedkar an anti-national. For that, Ramchandra Guha quotes a what you can say, documented evidence for it. That when Gandhi in 1937, I think when he goes to Karachi or somewhere, when a question will be raised about Ambedkar's, what you can say, national consciousness. So Gandhi will tell that no, Ambedkar cannot be called as an anti-national. Why? He says that if he was an anti-national, because if you see at that point of time, Ambedkar was highly educated. Get in mind, he had studied in foreign universities. So he told if he wanted, he could have gone and settled abroad and not come back here, because he would have got a chair. Chair means permanently they would have housed in one of the foreign universities. But he told he came back to India to fight for his people, and that is why Gandhi says I don't consider him to be an anti-national, but he says that I can understand that why is anger about me and the upper caste. So there is different views. So that we'll be reading out what? Different perspectives about the Indian national movement. So here you don't need to worry about should I read the name of the organization, etc. Not required. It's just the perspectives. 2, 3, 4, 5, this is nothing but plain to plain polity, what you have read. Making of the Indian constitution, the legacies of British rule, different social and political perspectives. Means what? If you have in polity, when you have studied the making of the Indian constitution, there is a Gandhian perspective, there is an Ambedkar perspective, there is a Nehruian perspective on it. And then you have legacies of the British rule. So if you take the Government of India Act 1935, we say that is a structural framework of the present day Indian constitution. Some people also call it as what? Carbon copy. Indian constitution is a carbon copy of 1935 Act, but many reject it, saying that it's not a blind carbon copy of the 1935 Act. Then you are going to read about salient features of the Indian constitution, preamble, fundamental rights, directive principle of state policy, parliamentary system, amendment procedure, judicial review, basic structure, doctrine. So whatever you read in GS2, same to same, only one difference is that we'll be reading about certain scholars. Not too many. If you take judiciary, you have Pratap Banu Mehta, who regularly writes in Indian Express. Okay. So these things same to same, whatever we read in GS, same to same we are going to read in political science, only that I will teach you how to write answers here compared to your GS paper. Same thing again, if you take principal organs of the union government and actual working, executive, legislature, Supreme Court. Means you are going to read about Indian Parliament, Prime Minister, Council of Ministers, and working of the same thing, cabinet committees, parliamentary committees, etc. Principal organs of the state government, role, actual working, executive, legislature, High Court. Then you have grassroots democracy, Panchayat Raj, municipal government, significance of 73rd and 74th Amendment, grassroots movements. Then you are going to read about statutory bodies and constitutional bodies in that regard, Election Commission, CAG, State Finance Commission, same to same. Federalism, that is what? Center-state relations. And then, see, this we can divide the syllabus into 3 things. From 1 to 1A and B, we can call it as political history. Means you are reading historical aspects of Indian politics. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you can read about institutional politics. Means we are studying about Indian government institutions, judiciary, executive, etc. 8.1, what is there? That we are going to say is more of political economy. Means where politics and economics overlap. So you can say Nehruian plan, Gandhian plan, that is Nehru's plan is that 5-year planning what he brought. Then Green Revolution, land reforms, agrarian relations, liberalization and economic reforms. So what are the economic reforms? We can say after 1991 we brought liberalization, privatization and global. We have to read what is the impact of that on the population, on the society, on Indian politics in that regard. So we can also learn interlinking. What is interlinking? Look here, we have party system. This chapter, party system. You have national parties, regional parties, ideological, social base, etc., etc. So here we'll be reading out major parties: Congress, the BJP, Communist Party. Not all, major ones. Aam Aadmi Party is a new mechanism. And in exam also they won't ask question randomly tell what is BJP's ideology. They won't ask like that. They might ask questions say that why Congress was on decline. What led to the emergence of the new forces? So if you look at rise of the Bharatiya Janata Party, it overlaps with two things. The BJP's rise in India overlaps with two things. One, the Ram Mandir issue in 1980s in that regard. So till 1980s in India, Ram Mandir issue, the Ayodhya movement, what was there? It was more of a social movement, not a political movement. But in 1980s, what was a social movement became a political movement, and that is what we say, who gave that opportunity? It was Rajiv Gandhi. Because it goes back to the link with Shabano case. When the Supreme Court gave the Shabano verdict in that regard, where a Muslim woman, the court told, should get alimony from the husband, now the Muslim community got angry that courts are interfering in their internal issues. And what Rajiv Gandhi's government did, they brought an amendment and they told we are going to protect the Muslim women divorce, that is the traditional system, what is it, that will continue. The Supreme Court's decision was overturned. And obviously now the Hindus saw this as what, more of appeasement by the Congress to the minority, and now they felt that they have to balance. Now they have to balance the Hindu interest also. For that, what happened? This temple, what is there? This Babri Masjid thing, what is there? In 1949, the gates were locked up. There was a court judgment saying both the parties should not will be allowed to enter it. But that year, after Shabano judgment, next year, there was a judgment in a local court in Uttar Pradesh saying that the Hindus will be allowed to worship. And opening of the gates of the temple, now you can say the Bharatiya Janata Party, before it was called as Bharatiya Jana Sangh, and later BJP was born in 1985 with Advani and Vajpayee. And now you can say Advani led this movement called as the Ayodhya movement, and you can say now BJP, which had got 2 seats in 1984 elections, but in the next elections, that is 1989, once the Ayodhya movement started, they jumped from 2 to 70. They are not able to form the government on their own, but they became a formidable force, especially in the Hindi belt. And since then, if you see Indian politics, the Congress vote share has been declining, the BJP's vote share has been increasing. There are other factors also. So for example, once India liberalized, privatized and globalized, the ideology matches with the BJP more, because BJP is more inclined towards liberalization, privatization and globalization. Second thing, urbanization. India is becoming more urbanized. So usually the voter behavior is such that, if you see Congress even today is very strong in rural areas. If you take the urban areas in that regard, largely they are inclined towards the BJP. Because BJP's social base, if you take, largely it is the middle class, the upper middle class or the upper caste. So in a way, here we need to study that how the political structure of India is changing. And here you have different scholars. They will speak about Congress system, 1952 to 1967. Then you can say the Congress system will decline, rise of Indira Gandhi in that regard. But Indira Gandhi Congress was powerful, but it was not like the Nehruian Congress. And then you had an alternative system that emerged called as Janata Party. That was for only 2 years. And Janata Party declined, but then Indira Gandhi came back to power again, but you can say she was killed. And then Rajiv Gandhi got the mandate in 1984. But since 1989, Congress has been completely declining. Here again, if you see Congress's vote share in that regard, it has been consistently declining in successive elections. So here we need to interlink also that the green revolution, land reforms, how this has impacted party system in India, because there are a lot of impact of land. So when we study green revolution, we are not going to only study environmental aspect of green revolution. This is not the environment paper. This is what paper? Political science paper. So when you think about your answer, you have to think what is the impact of green revolution on Indian politics. What is the impact of green revolution on Indian party system? What is the impact of green revolution on social movements? Because after green revolution happened, you can see farmers movement also changed. Today, if you see the farmers movement, where it is highly concentrated, this farm bill, Punjab and Haryana, why not in Karnataka? Basically, mainly these are the green revolution states. There is a link between green revolution and the farm protests. So that we need to establish. You're getting the point. So whatever you read, land reforms, green revolution, don't think it is only in general you are going to read. Largely we are going to focus on politics part. That is why the subject is only called as political science, the scientific study of understanding of politics. Then you have caste, religion, ethnicity in Indian politics. So again we are going to read here what is the role of caste in Indian politics? To what extent caste is important? So we say now people in India do not cast their vote, they vote their caste. So practically theoretically we can say we want to form a classless society, a casteless society, etc. But end of the day when it comes to ticket distribution, etc., everything is based on caste calculations. Get your mind? So caste is a very fundamental aspect of Indian politics. But that we need to study to what extent caste matters. But at the same time it is also equally true, caste is not the only factor of Indian politics. So if two parties, now you take Davangere only, now both BJP and the Congress have given ticket to Lingayat women's. Right? Now Congress has also given to a Lingayat woman, BJP also has given to a Lingayat woman, largely because in Davangere, Lingayat population is high. Now when Lingayats go to vote in elections, you cannot tell they are only going to vote on Lingayat as a factor, because both sides are Lingayats only. Now other things will also matter. What will matter? Party, what they are standing from, their personal charisma, what they are standing from, or they can be also factors such as issues, local issues, what are there. But caste is one of the factor. So we need to study about what is the role of caste. So here you will be reading out certain scholars like Yogendra Yadav, M.N. Srinivas, Rajni Kotari. Similarly, role of religion in Indian politics. Now we have to see that from when religion started becoming important in Indian politics. What is the role of religion in Indian politics? Ethnicity. If you take in Northeast, etc., you have these Mizos, Nagas, etc. There are different ethnic groups. So what is the role of ethnicity in Indian politics? So ethnicity need not be always linked with race. For example, you can take this language issue that can be also brought under ethnicity. So here party system, I told national parties, regional parties, ideological base, pressure groups, electoral behavior, changing socioeconomic, means we have to study about how are MPs, their socioeconomic background is changing. Socioeconomic background means what? Caste what they belong to, class what they belong to, what is their education in that regard. Do we see more number of graduates becoming part of MPs? That we need to study. For that, I have prepared a data and notes for it. That will be sufficient if you go through. And this question will be important because this is election year, 2024. Again a point. So in election year, usually if you refer the previous year question paper, they have asked about areas like these. Okay, man. So that's why I told one advantage with political science is that what many people think it is dynamic. But dynamism is the advantage because you don't need to read everything. This is an election year. Pakka you can say that there will be one or two questions in this area. And if you are reading continuously editorial pages in that regard, nothing else will be required apart from class notes. So this holistically is what? Your paper 1 of political science. So you have part A and you have part B. So any doubts in this part? If you have any doubts in this part, you can ask before we go into paper 2. Anybody has any doubts here? Okay. Now let us come to paper 2, part A. So if you see, it is comparative politics and international relations. So the 1, 2, 3, what is there? First 3, it is related to comparative politics. So in name only it is there, comparative politics. What is comparative politics? We need to compare. So here one doubt will, sir, should I compare every country in the world? No. Largely we are going to compare the developed world and the developing world. So India is an example of a developing country. America is an example of developed world. So we need to compare, like, what is the role of state in those countries? What is the role of state in our countries? What is the political culture in those countries? What is it? If you take in America, caste does not play a key role. In India, caste does play a key role. Religion does play a key role. Or if you take in certain Western European countries in that regard, there you can say there are many political parties which are pro-environment. In India, you don't find political parties which are environmental parties. So this Wang Chuk or somebody who was recently protesting, right? That who is that? What's his name? Sonam Wang Chuk. He was protesting. How many of you know? See, many of you don't only. Okay, so most of it. What was the response from the government? Nothing. The government, they won't get, that fellow won't get support also. If it was farmers issue, the government will focus. Why? Farmers are important voters. In India, environmental activism and all is not still so matured. It's not, we have not grown as a society where environment has become important. It will in future. But as of now, if you go into any political now, BJP, Congress, Aam Aadmi Party, you have JDS in that regard. Now, almost all the parties now they're campaigning for election, right? Name any one party which largely has campaigned for, we are going to protect environment, we are going to conserve forest. It will be there somewhere in the manifesto or fag end, but that is not going to be their main theme. What will be the main theme? Employment, religion, freebies, same reservation. These are the main things. Any party you see, that is what they largely speak out, right? Do you find any party saying that we will go protect Western Ghats? If you take Western Ghats itself, the Madhav Gadgil committee had recommended 90% of the Western Ghats should be declared as eco-sensitive zone. But later what happened? Protest happened, and they had to appoint one more committee called as Kasturi Rangan committee, and they actually reduced the economic sensitive areas. Why? Developmental pressure. Government has to create employment. Right? Our population is growing. We need resources, and most of the resources are in forest. Obviously, it's a conflict between what? Development versus conservation. So in India, it is always development that wins. Conservation does not win. Why? Because you'll read, see, that's what I told. What you read here, you already read in paper wheat. Again, it repeats. Environmentalist movements, human rights movements, women movements. See, again here, you have political parties, pressure group, social movements in advanced and developing societies. Again, they are not different, same to same. So, except Chipko movement in India, no other environmental movement has seen a drastic success. The analysis of it is that Chipko movement was not against the government, it was against a private company. Whenever it is directly against the government, most of the environment movements have failed. Take Narmada Bachao Andolan. It is happening from almost 20 years. The reason is that the problem in India, what happens is that the moment you raise questions on environmental issues, the government will tag it as what? Anti-national activities. You will be branded as an anti-national. And that is why most of the environmental movements in India won't succeed. And second one, in India we do not have a, what you can say, an all India environmental movement. You are getting a point? Now what is happening in Chipko was only to Uttarakhand. What happened in Apiko was only to Karnataka. Now what is happening in the Silent Valley National Park was in Kerala. Or if you take Save Hesarghatta movement is there. In Bangalore only if it is, there is Save Hesarghatta movement. But people from Hesarghatta apart from that, nobody else knows about the movement or they care. So Sunita Narayan, there is a scholar, she says the problem with Indians is that not in my neighborhood attitude. Means if it is not in your neighboring country, you are not bothered. Yaar hingadru sali nanne. That is the thing. Why? That is why environmental movements in India are not powerful. And that is why government will also not respond to it. But if you take farmers movement, if you take caste movements, why they will matter? Because they are all potential voters. The government will have to reach out. If they don't reach out, they are going to lose power. And that is what we are going to see. But we are going to compare with developed countries. Why in developed countries environmental movements are stronger? In Germany, there is a party called as Green Party. That party, how Aam Aadmi Party in India, it emerged from a social movement. There also Green Party also emerged from an environmental movement. And Green Party largely speaks about environmental issues. So there is no such parties in India. That we need to compare. And similarly, we have to compare Indian parties and Western parties. So in India, you can say most of the Indian parties except the Bharatiya Janata Party and Communist Party to a certain extent, these are all cadre-based parties. What do you mean by cadre-based parties? The leadership will emerge from the ground. To largely, to take the BJP and Communist Party in that regard, these are the largely two cadre-based parties. But most of the other parties in India, they run like family-run enterprises. Congress was before a cadre-based party, but over the years it has become what? Party. JDS you don't need to say only. It is very difficult to find outsiders within JDS. Or if you take even DMK or Samajwadi Party, most of the parties in India are all controlled and run by families. So I told in India only two cadre-based parties you find. One is the Bharatiya Janata Party, the other is Communist Party of India. But again, there also you can say there is family bit of dynasty. For example, you take in Karnataka, now you take Yadurappa and his son. So even in cadre-based parties in India, you do find influence of dynasts. So we need to make a comparative analysis. You're going to learn how the government works here, how the government will work there, how social movements work here, how social movements work there, how are the pressure groups here, how are the pressure groups there, how political parties function here, how political parties function there. Fourth one, you have globalization and response from developed and developing societies. So here we have to understand what is globalization, what is the impact in developed world, what is the impact in developed. In developed world it is visible. If you are reading newspaper, etc. Across the developed world, what is happening? America, France, Sweden, there is increasing protectionist policies, there is increasing what you can say anti-migration views, there is increasing what you can say attack on migrants. Why? Because now the developed societies, they are feeling that because of too much migration in these countries, they are losing jobs, their culture is going away, and that is why you can see in the recent times rise of Donald Trump in America, or if you take in Sweden, for the first time there was a right-wing government which came to power, or in Hungary you have Viktor Orban, who is again a right-wing ruler. So why? Because in developed world today there is a negative impact of globalization. So we need to find how globalization has impacted developed world and developing societies. And then you have approaches to study international relations. From here your IR will start. So when we say approaches to study international relations, so I don't know, your thinkers who are there, what you have studied in part A, they will come back here again. Idealists is Plato, Socrates, etc. Realists, Machiavelli, Kautilya, Hobbes. Then you have Marxists, Karl Marx and approaches. Functionist approach, systems theory. Again, you will have different theories. Like realism, I don't know, like what Machiavelli said, two countries cannot never be friends. Your friendship is always based on your interest. For example, today India and America are becoming close partners. We don't tell India and America are natural allies. Why don't we call India and America as natural allies? Basically, currently our interest and their interest overlaps with regards to China. Tomorrow if things change, America is going to change. If their national interests change, tomorrow India can become America's. If India grows very strongly and India becomes the next superpower of the world, obviously will be a threat to America. So, in international relations, there is no permanent friends, there is no permanent foes. The only thing what is permanent is your national interest. That is what realism believes and it professes. So, we need to understand like the different approaches, realist approach, Marxist approach, liberal approach, etc. Then we have to study key concepts in IR. What is national interest? What is security? What is power? See, power again you have read in part A. Here again you will be reading. What is balance of power? What is deterrence? Who are transnational actors? NGOs, terror groups, what is that? Multinational companies, we all call them as transnational actors. Collective security, NATO, if you take, that is an example of collective security. And world capitalist economy and globalization. So same thing, again you can say what you read here, globalization, it repeats again here. Changing international political order. So under that what will be reading? Rise of superpowers. So first of all we need to understand what is a superpower. Then if you see Britain was a superpower at one point of time. Britain lost power. Then you had two superpowers, that is America and USSR. Then USSR lost power. Then America became the unipolar world. Now you can say again America's power is on decline. It is not completely declined, it's on decline, and there is a new rising power, that is China. That we need to study. How that happened, why that means same here. Why did Russia and USA became two superpowers? Why did Russia lose power? How America became the most dominant power? Today, why American power is declining? So, rise of superpower, strategic and ideological bipolarity, arms race, Cold War, nuclear threat, non-aligned movement, aims and because during Cold War we had NAM, and India was part of non-aligned movement. So again, what is NAM? What is its aim, achievements, etc. Then you are going to read what collapse of Soviet Union, unipolarity, American hegemony, relevance of NAM in today's world. they're all interconnected. It's not that these are all sub-chapter. If you read them as a whole, that is enough. Then you have international economic system. So here you will be studying about WTO, IMF, World Bank, and you are studying again, see, globalization. When globalization repeated it 3 places. So it's not that you will be taking 3 separate notes. It will be only one set of notes. Then you have United Nations, UN. Okay. Again, don't think about in UN we are going to read UN and agencies and all. UNESCO, UNICEF, ILO. They have never asked in the exam. They only ask about UN, United Nations. So again, reforms. What are the reforms that can be brought in United Nations? Then you have regionalization of world politics. You will be reading about European Union, ASEAN, APEC, SAARC and NAFTA. And largely if you see questions have largely come on that year what is in use. So recently if you say Prime Minister held the India ASEAN summit, they can ask about India and ASEAN. With European Union we are negotiating for a free trade agreement. That is why they can ask a question in that regard. So don't try to read all organization. We'll do in class, I'll tell you which to read, which not to read. And the last part of part A, see again, democracy, human rights, environment, gender, terrorism, nuclear proliferation. Now look at part B. Now half of the part B is already what you have read in part A. India and South Asia, SAARC, South Asia Free Trade Agreement, Look East policies with Asia, means improving relations with Asian countries. SAARC and ASEAN you already read. Then if you look here, India's contribution to non-aligned movement, different phases. You have read here what where is it? Non-aligned movement, aims and objectives. Same and same. It's not anything different. There's no 2 different notes for it. Then NIKHIL and WTO. There also have read WTO. And European Union you are reading here, India, European Union. You have read European Union here again. India and nuclear question, means nuclear policy. Nuclear proliferation. And largely you are going to read here certain bilateral countries, USA, Japan, China, Russia, Iraq, Afghanistan, West Asia, Israel. So you are not going to read all countries, you are just going to read the countries which are mentioned there in the syllabus. Again when you read bilateral relation, you are not going to read their history and story and all. Plain and simple, if you take Maldives, currently Maldives is becoming inclined towards China. Why they are becoming inclined towards China? What is the impact of that on India? What India needs to do? That's it. Nothing more. You don't need to know about Maldives history, India history. That's what I told. Don't try to become a research scholar here. Not required. Just prepare for the exam. Or if you take Quad has been formulated. Simple. What is Quad? Why Quad? What will India gain from Quad? Okay, what are the challenges within Quad? What's the point? Now, so this is the syllabus, paper 1 and paper 2. Now, as I told, in GS, that's what I told, reading here or reading in GS, same content can be used. Only answer writing technique will be different. Modern history from medieval 18th century, paper 1, part B, 1A, it repeats. Freedom struggle, same, paper 1, part B. And you have post-independence and reorganization within the country. Paper 1, part B, 7, 8, 9, 10 chapters overlap. And history of the world, industrial revolution, colonization, decolonization, communism, capitalism, socialism. Paper 1, part A, section 8, same to same. And we take salient features of Indian society, caste, religion, etc. Paper 1, part B, section 9 and 10. And if you take effects of globalization on Indian society, paper 2, part A, section 8 and 4. Social empowerment, communalism, regionalism, secularism, paper 1, part B, 7, 8, 9. So you take GS2, this part, that yellow color part, what you can say, complete part is covered under paper 1, part B, 2, 3, 4, 5 chapters. And if you take this part, constitutional post, statutory post, paper 1, part B, section 6. And if you take International relations, completely same to same, which is there in paper 2, part B. Take GS3, planning, development, employment, that is Nehruvian model, Gandhian model, etc. Inclusive growth and issues arising. Government budgeting means how budget is passed, how budgeting is done. Land reforms, PSIR paper 1, part B, section 8. Effects of liberalization of Indian economy, same thing we have done, LPG reforms, paper 1, part B, section 8. And security, that is internal security agencies, this you are studying in paper 2, part A, section 6. And in paper 2, part B, you will be reading about National Security Advisor, NSA, Prime Minister's office. They all play key role in what? India's internal and external security. And if you take in ethics paper, lessons and lives of great leaders, as I told, Gandhi, Ambedkar, M.N. Roy, Aurobindo Ghosh, Buddha, Kautilya, etc. Everybody you are reading here. Political attitudes means how people will vote, caste, religion, etc. Then you have impartiality, non-partition, empathy, compassion, weaker section. So in paper 1, part A, if you study equality, justice, etc., rights, same to same, it deals with the same issues. And you have contribution of smaller thinkers and philosophers of India and around the world. So you're reading about Plato, Aristotle, Machiavelli, etc. And ethical issues in international relations and funding that you have already read in IMF, World Bank, WTO. So that's why I told PSIR syllabus overlaps with almost 40 to 50% of your GS syllabus. Same to same content what is required. And that is why it is one of the most preferred optional subjects. And content remains the same, but the only difference lies in how you are going to write the answer. That will be taught once we start with the classes. Now, what are the sources that you need to bank on? Class notes, which is very comprehensive. You can blindly go through it. News to notes, there is a monthly magazine, what we release it, to cover current affairs part of PSR. Means largely the editorial pages what are there, that will be compiled. That will be, if you are following our Telegram channel also, regularly we are posting important articles, that will be compiled in a book and it will be given. Hindu and Indian Express editorials, if you have the habit of reading newspaper. IGNO material is one thing what you can use for political science, a basic material along with class notes as a reference. This is optional. If you want extra information, etc., for clarification, you can read O.P. Gauba for paper 1 and Andrew Haywood, Global Politics, for paper 2. But this is all towards later stages. First, only focus on the class notes. Okay. So, already posted the NCERT books, that what you need to read. That if you have started reading, it's good. So, NCERT book basic reading will set you up for basic understanding. Okay, don't need to make notes and all, just read it, because all that thing will be added in the notes itself, the class notes what will be providing. The course design, as I told, we'll be starting with what? Western political thought, then we'll be going into political theory, political ideologies, theories of state, concept, equality, justice, liberty, power, authority, democracy, legitimacy, then Indian political thought, then part B, paper 1, then part A, paper 2, and last part will be part B, paper 2. So the course will take around 4 to 5 months, largely 4.5 months. So the notes what will be there, it will be provided like this also. This is a sample. So whatever value addition I will be uploading on my notes, that will be added on your portal. You have to download it and you have to read it. And as I told, our target is that by completion of these 4 months or 4.5 months, we need to at least answer 80% of the previous year questions in the classroom itself. Get in mind, in classroom only we have to complete the writing of what? Previous year question. See, scoring in UPSC is easy, but provided if you understand what is the trend. You're getting point. If you blindly approach the exam, then you won't have an answer to it. That's what I told. You cannot approach the exam blindly. What is approaching the exam blindly? Every optional is scoring, provided you know the optional well. Get in mind, it's not that you select this optional, that is why you will get high marks. It won't work like that. In any optional you can score well, provided you know that approach to the optional. So as I told, social science subjects such as political science, sociology, public administration, anthropology, you need to develop your writing skills. Okay, and that is why I told, writing is the main part. What many people will do, they won't write. They'll only come and listen to the class. And they think that is the end The thing means, after class, we'll directly go, we'll get a rank. I told you before only, if you think like that, you will go to Kengeri, you're not going to Mussoorie. So to go to Mussoorie, you have to do a lot of hard work and you have to do practice. So one example I'll show you of our test series student, Mr. Shravan Kumar. Okay, he was our political science test series student. So this is his answer copy. So he got into Indian Administrative Service, All India rank 222. So he got this is one of the paper what he wrote, 142. 142 out of 250. This is the answer what is written like on, this is paper 2, political science. Like history and culture are determinants of Indian foreign policy. And look at the answer, Indian foreign policy has not emerged from vacuum, but it is a result of history, culture and geography, etc. Means as I told, introduction you can't by heart. You should have been prepared beforehand for you to write. Then he says what, he writes what? India being a civilizational cosmopolitan, India being a civilization state, cosmopolitan view of the world, spiritualistic view of politics, tolerance and pluralism is a result of Indian culture, values and ways of life. Such cultural values as Salman Rushdie held in displayed through non-aligned movement, nuclear doctrine, neighborhood first policy, the recent case studies of vaccine distribution, yoga diplomacy, what is that? Namaste diplomacy is a result, are the manifestation. And primarily 3 major policies in the movement of Indian freedom struggle: the anti-colonization, Indian administrative offices set up in colonial world. Okay, and Indian foreign policy is the bearer of cultural values, historical, what is it, something cosmopolitan, and put to multiple organizations like UN and WTO. So if you look at his answer in that regard, one, he is using paragraph format. Okay, unlike GS where you use in point format, in optional we usually encourage to write in paragraph format. And second one, you can see history and culture as a determinant of an Indian foreign, how it has influenced Indian foreign policy. He has given a lot of examples in his answer. And he has a very good introduction and a very good conclusion. And you can see the keyword he has underlined: civilizational state, cosmopolitan view, certain scholars what he has mentioned. And this was his score also in the actual exam. Paper 1 he scored 144, paper 2 he scored 138. So he got around 282. And that's a pretty good. And he had got 115 interview. If he had got like 200 interview, he would have been in top 50. But still, anyway, he got IS Karnataka itself in that regard for his ranking. So, if you write well, it is very possible to score marks. But as I said, the writing is a technique. That's what I told. Everything lies in writing. It not only lies with listening to a class. That's what I told. In classroom, we have to make it a habit that you have to, at least before the classes will end, we have to write 80% of the previous year questions. That should be your goal. If you have written 80% of the question, definitely you can score about 250, even with basic reading. 300 and all will require certain value addition, etc. And certain rigorous practice. So that is what we say. Saturdays will be mentorship day, every Saturday. So mentorship day we can have anything, any doubts what you have on that week, what classes has been done. We'll be approaching a lot of previous year questions on a mentorship day. Second one, any editorial pages which is important for the exam, which has come in that week. Because regularly, if you follow the political science Telegram channel, regularly I'm uploading every day newspaper edit, every day that is there. All you need to do is that just consolidate and read it in that regard. So Saturday will be largely working on what? Answer writing thing, or what you can say, discussions or any doubt clarifications, doubt evaluations, and how to approach the questions. So what you need to do is that, one, get a previous year question bank. Have a question bank with you always. And before every class start, we'll upload the previous class, that class notes on your portal. So download it once and try to read it once. If you don't understand anyway when you come to the class, then you'll be able to make sense of it. Any extra things, like you can say any value addition that can be done, that will be dictated in the class, that you can take down. So first you read the class notes, try to complete the class notes, then you go for what? The reference readings of what has been said. So that will be our approach. And in between, yes, we'll have certain tests. It's not like that fixed number of tests. Whenever we feel that, okay, that you are in a position to write, that time we'll have a test. Because otherwise what will happen when we give tests for sake of giving tests? So many people won't write, or many people will stop coming to tests only. Because writing will need practice. You cannot randomly, I think in GS also you have observed that in a weekend test what they give, it's not that randomly you can go, you can write 8 questions, you can't. If you write 3 or 4, it will be great. The reason is that you need content. Without content you cannot expect you to come and write an answer. You know, you nobody can do that. Even me, without I'm not prepared on a topic, I can't come and write an answer effectively. So the first part will be content building. Second part will be structuring of the answers. And third part will be you regularly writing answers. So maintain a separate notebook for answer writing. A separate notebook for answer writing. Maintain a separate notebook for your class notes. Means I told printed notes will be given, or my handwritten notes will be there. That will be scanned and uploaded on the portal. But for value addition, you maintain a notebook in that regard. So that will be important. And as I told, Indian Express and Hindu articles regularly read. ORF Diplomat, I'll be posting on Telegram channel. Got it? So any other doubt in this part? Read anyone, but Indian Express certain articles which are important for political science, that will add it on Telegram channel, that you read. You don't follow Indian Express every day. Follow either one, although either follow Hindu or Indian Express. But on our Telegram channel, regularly we'll be posting articles. So if there is any, you're reading Hindu, but there is any important Indian Express article which we have posted on the Telegram, that you follow. And that you don't need to worry that what is that article, if it is important to any issue, that you will find in the notes. Okay, so that will be in there in the notes. So I will show you one sample notes how it will be. Then you will get an idea. Just give me 2 seconds, or you can take a break for 5 minutes. I'll add that notes into the PPT. So this is a sample notes on secularism chapter which is there. So that is the role of religion, etc. So in starting there will be certain viewpoints that who has said what, and in that viewpoint we'll explain that what is his viewpoint, what he has explained. This is views of Christopher Javlot. Then you have Nehru's view in that regard. Then you have Rajiv Bhargava, who is also one more important scholar on role of religion and Indian politics. So the notes will be this way, and you can see book reviews will be also written, which are the important books that you can write. Because in social science subject, what will happen is that if you write two general answers, you won't score marks. So many people, what they will think is that you usually observe and see, whenever the paper has come very easy, very, very easy, the scores are not so great. So what will happen is that what many people will think when they take options like political science, sociology or PubAd, they come from science background. So their knowledge will be very simple. Like some people's knowledge will be that, okay, this is so easy, like Indian society. ಸಮಜದಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಿದೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಸುತ್ತಮುತ್ತ ಇರೋದೇ ನಾವು ಅದನ್ನೇ ಬರೆಯೋದು. That is generalist approach. They won't give you marks. If they say, let us take analyze the impact of globalization on Indian family system. You cannot just write generally what is there. You have to read certain theories. You have to link those theories. What they've told in the theories that you need to apply. But what students will think is that, oh, that is too general. I can sit now and write the answer. GS answer you can read. Yeah, because in GS answer there is no need of any theoretical linkages. But in optional subject you need to have a theoretical linkages. And when you don't have that, what will happen? Your scores won't improve. So when I wrote political science first time, when I read first time, I had read almost all the books, because I had not taken coaching that time, because that time we have to go to Delhi only. In Bangalore there was no major coaching and I was not comfortable going to Delhi. But here the problem was that reading from online, that time also many toppers were there. Many toppers won't exactly tell what they would have really done. They will tell, I've read these books, etc. So one fellow, what I had read that time, he told I read this book, that book. So I brought all those books, like Rajni Kothari, Caste of Politics, Shashi Tharoor, Pax Indica. After reading all those sources, when I'm preparing for the exam, I felt I don't know anything. Too many sources, too much content. Obviously in exam, how many words you're going to write? 250 words, not beyond 250 words. So whatever you want to show your skill, you have to show within those 250 words. So obviously for that you need to have very short notes, or you have to take a notes, make short notes out of it, and you have to be crystal clear in your mind, this I'm going to use it in my answer whenever they ask. So theoretical linkages beforehand you should connect. Okay, if this question comes, this theory I'm going to link. First time I didn't do like that. I wrote generally whatever came to my mind. One thing I felt while writing only, I felt that there is not enough content in my answers, because even though I read a lot of things, I felt I was not able to use most of the things what I read in my answer script. Second problem was that questions. So obviously what will happen, many people what they will think is that when they see a topic, right, they think, oh, religion, okay, what they will ask on religion, easy na, I'll write everything on. You have to have solved previous year questions, then you will get an idea. So I don't know, that year that asked one, I think before also I've told, they asked a question on human rights. They told dilemma of human rights movement in India. Okay, dilemmas of human rights movement in India. I have read about what is human right, I have read about human rights movement, but I never focus on the word dilemma. What do you mean by a dilemma? Confusion, state of confusion. So in your answer you have to bring what is the confusion with respect to human rights movements in India. For this there is no need of any scholar and all, just write current issues. But I didn't know that time, I just wrote theory. Okay, this is what there. One of my friend I told, who had read minimal but he had very practical approach, he wrote the answer more apt. So he told like this Madesnana in Karnataka, because that when we were writing the exam, that was a big issue in Karnataka. So this Madesnana is a practice in Kukke Subramanya, where there is a tribal community called as Malekudiyas. And this tribal community, what their habit is that they will roll over the eaten banana leaves of Brahmins. Means in banana leaf they'll serve food na. So what the Brahmins will eat and live, these people will roll over that. That is a practice among them. It's a practice that has been followed since ages. Now, obviously, that was opposed by whom? The rational sections of society, saying that this is below human dignity, it violates human rights. Problem here is that the same community is telling that this is our tradition. Who are you to ask? That is our tradition, we'll follow. Now, this is a question mark whether that is a human right violation or that can be taken as a protection under cultural rights. Or if you take with abortion laws in that regard, many feminist groups, they say that women should have the right over her body to abort the child. There should be no kind of state regulation. But now many people will raise the question, the fetus, does the fetus have a right or not? Or does the idea of human rights will only begin with the birth of the baby? Or is there a right to the fetus? That's again a dilemma with human rights movement, whether to take up these issues or not. Or third one is that when Naxalites kill the police, not the other way around, when Naxalites kill the police, can we take that as a human right violation? Or is human right violation always taken as when the state will violate the rights of the people? Means does the policemen, they don't have human rights. So these are the kind of dilemmas which are there in human rights movements in India. So this does not require any theory. Just in a theory you can write definition of human right. This is all practical examples what you can write. That's why I told solving a lot of questions will give you that practicality. That was missing when I wrote for the first time. And the second thing, I had read Pax Indica book like this. This is a book written called as The Saffron Wave by Thomas Blom Hansen. The crux of the book is only this much. He has captured that how the BJP rose in India, how the saffron wave. Saffron wave means the rise of the BJP in India. So he gives reason into it. So he gives certain analysis that what happened, socio-economic analysis, etc. Who are the support base of the party? What is the ideology of the party? This is a 200-300 pages book. Okay. Now what will happen in somewhere they would have read, I have referred this book. That is what happened first time when somebody wrote Rajni Kothari Indian Politics. I referred this book. I read the whole book, that is 300 pages. Later I understood it was not required. You need to understand the crux what is there in the book. So if you say in Hindu newspaper, every Friday or something they'll give book review. That is enough. You know what is the core idea in the book. You use the book, the name in your answer, even though you have not read the book. Obviously, no, the evaluator cannot come and cross question you saying that book odidya odilva. He can't ask that. He will make an assessment seeing your answer that, oh okay, this student is bright, he is given so much references. Another person was right too general, they will feel what this one has not read much, he is not adding content. But again it depends upon the demand of the question. You cannot write everywhere books names. It depends upon what the question will require. So that is why this will be a book review. Means I would have added the name of the book, the author, and what is the core idea in this particular book, what Thomas Blom Hansen says. So any other new book, etc., as I told, digital notes why we are maintaining, it's easy to add. Plain and simple, one more page will be added. If we find any new book is released, which is there. And you'll also get that who is the important scholar. There will be only 2 or 3. Like he is only Pratap Banu Mehta. He'll regularly write in Indian Express. And if you take, this is notes on globalization. So again you have, see introduction now, when we define globalization, usually I will add a scholar's name, a book, and how he has defined globalization. And here again different viewpoints and different schools of thought with Venn diagram, and again their books same to same. It will be there. So all when we'll discuss in the class, we'll go through all of them. But you can see this was recently added because this is a new book that has been released. He had written a book called as Globalization and its Discontent. The same scholar has written a new book called as Rewriting the Rules of the American Economy. So any kind of updation, that's what I told, you don't need to read multiple sources, we will provide it. That will be our work in that regard. And apart from this, we'll be also providing these news to notes. I don't know, monthly magazine which largely covers political science issues. These are all advertisement. So here will be the syllabus. So every month, what are the important updates? Like Bilkis Banos case had happened at that point of time. The China reviews means you will classify paper 1, part B, paper 2, part A, what issues can be linked, and you will have the notes here. So you don't need to read everything in this, only selected issues you can refer. That I will tell what are the important. But we will be covering most of the issues. So this will be the content part. So as I told, content part, as I said, you don't need to read anything extra. Just keep those books, what I told, as a reference. What is a reference? Let us say you want to understand more. That time you can use the reference book. But if you feel your understanding is good with the notes, just revise the notes more number of times instead of see in UPSC one thing is very simple. Read one set of notes multiple times rather than reading multiple set of notes one time, because you can only write for those 250 words. When you can write in 250 words, what you'll be able to write or what you'll be able to remember? Only the keywords. Plain and simple. End of the day, it is all about keywords. How many keywords do you know? How much keywords you can recall? Because you cannot write everything what is there in the notes in your answer. That's why short notes is very important for the exam. But you cannot directly take somebody's short notes and make. You have to make those short notes. To make those short notes, you have to read first notes. Understood? So any doubt in this part regarding the notes or material? Any doubt you have, you can ask. Anything regarding the material part? Okay. Then the other part will be, the session is that we'll be also giving, on Saturdays I told, when we'll have mentorship session, I'll also keep certain topics to certain students to come and discuss. You have to come discuss. And see, political science will involve politics. You cannot take politics out of political science. End of the day, that is why the subject is called as political science. So you can use party's name, you can use leader's name, but most of the times when you write, there should be a balance in your answer. You can't be largely seen as supporter of this ideology or that ideology in your answer script. Outside you be anything, but in answer script, there should be reflection of neutrality. For me, it's fine. I'm not writing exam. I can be aligned anywhere. But does not mean that when it comes to subject, we will go through both aspects. Why I am telling is that this subject itself is only political, and political debates are bound to arise. Because I told, there is criticism on Gandhi, there is criticism on Ambedkar. That's what I told, criticism will be there. So you have to know why that criticism is there, what is the counter view of that criticism. So the whole subject is in a way, view, counter view, view, counter view. We say in, I think social science students will know, synthesis, thesis, antithesis and synthesis. Okay. So what Socrates has said, some ideas have been followed by Plato. What Plato has said, some ideas have been followed by Aristotle. But at the same time, Aristotle is also one of the biggest critic of Plato. There are many ideas what he has criticized. So every question they will ask in exam, if you see, it will be either critically analyze, discuss, etc. In optional paper also, in GS paper also. In your answer, there should be always balance. For, against and synthesis. Plain and simple. That is your writing technique in option subject. So let us take, there is a question that India, they'll tell, in India secularism is a myth. That I think that is one of the questions they'll ask. Actually, that is an article which is written by Pratap Bhanu Mehta. And the topic of the article was given as a question in the exam. So you need to write only what Pratap Bhanu Mehta has written. You have to first tell why there is a view that secularism in India is a myth. What do you mean by that? Means in India there is no genuine secularism. So you need to give reasons that why there is no genuine secularism. You can say there are political parties which are based on religious ideologies. Then you can say that communalism is again parcel of Indian society. You can say again there are many political associations which play a key role in Indian elections in that regard. Or then you can say the constitutional provisions what are there, there is only contradiction. For example, one hand the constitution says there is a need of uniform civil code, but the same constitution on the other hand, article 25, it says that every religion can follow their own customs and traditions. And some people say, first of all, India is not secular. Who? Western scholars. Because they compare India to Western concept of secularism until India is not secular. But then you need to bring the counter arguments like Rajiv Bhargava, etc., who says that we are not following the Western model of secularism. Our model of secularism is different. Yes, there will be inherent tensions in any country, but we can say that India is largely secular by practice. Historically, if you can take by culture, we had secular practices. You can give example of the Sufi movement or the what is that Bhakti movement traditions, or you can see King Ashoka's policies in that regard. And you can say that even though there is communal rights, it is not throughout the country. There is a data. Communal rights is largely concentrated in few states. There's never been an all India communal rights in India at large. They're all localized events. And third one, we have had a Sikh prime minister, we have had a Muslim president in that regard. So there have been different people who have occupied different positions. And you can write article 25, 26, 27, 28, provisions you can explain. But yes, however, there are challenges that you can write. So in your answer, there should be always a balance. You never write one-sided answers. Usually when you can write one-sided answers is that, let us take, there is some question on relevance of Gandhi's ideas in today's world. Largely you can give a positive thing. Maybe one or two you can say some ideas of Gandhi might not be relevant today, but largely his ideas like trusteeship, satyagraha, democratic decentralization, sarvodaya, upliftment, all eradication of poverty, that you can read. So in most of the answers, try to bring a balance. Understood? That's what I told. And second thing is that after every thinker you read, please allot time for revision. Don't just read and go. Because what will happen is that if you don't revise, by the time we finish Plato and come to Hannah Arendt, you would have forgotten Plato. Revision is always the key. And many people, the same in GS also, same mistake they'll do. They won't revise. They'll only keep reading and going ahead. Revision is the key. And second one, you need to have a strict regime. The reason is that now since your optional classes will also start, you will have GS classes also. So now more amount of time you will be spending in classroom. So your amount of time outside classroom will be less. So you need to use it economically. And here there's something, it's not about studying 20 hours or 18 hours a day. Make sure that even if you study 6 hours a day, have a proper plan or a proper strategy and fix to that, like a machine. You have to work like a machine for next 1.5 years, or let us take 2 years in that regard. So there should not be that initial josh is high. So usually what will happen is that in all batches in that regard, first 1 month class will be full. But by second or third month, class half will be empty. Why class half will be empty? Pradeep, Ishwar, Ravi Chennamar all disappear. Now reality of the exam will start coming. Plain simple, initially Josh will be there. That Josh will gradually go down. Why will go down? Ravi Chennamar did not become an IPS because he ran from some area to another area. He wrote in exam, that is why he got marks. When motivation is there, yes, he has told that kilometer. That is one part. He didn't get marks because he ran from one place to another place. He got marks for what? What he wrote in the examination hall. So that's why I said blind motivation in all work, like Pradeep Ishwar. Madbodu maga age agutte. Avane second PUC pass madak agilla. Plain and simple. On your election nomination agtaga second PUC incomplete. So obviously that can't be done only through motivation and inspiration. Motivation, inspiration is only to make you come here. Illu barsake motivation, inspiration. That is what will happen now. You take in 15 days, results will come. April 15th, mostly expected. So obviously in our test series, last time in political science, out of almost 60 odd candidates, 28 people have got interview call. Out of those 28 people, pakka 156 will get rank. And obviously there will be topper session. You see, admissions will increase after the topper session. Why? No, they will get confirmation. Illa optional 200 marks barutte. My point is that somebody getting a rank is not you getting a rank. You should develop abilities to get a rank. You're getting the point? It's not that somebody else got a rank, okay, now, plain and simple, what have you done to get a rank? Every topper will tell one strategy, right? You need to have your own set of own strategy, what I need to do. That clarity should be there. And that's why I told you have to work methodologically here. Okay, not, yeah, motivation, that should be there, but along with that you need to know, okay, how to prepare, what to read, how much to read, what should be my practical application. And that's why I told, don't aim to become master of anything. Don't become master of history, master of geography, or master of political science. Just make sure you got above average marks. If you're getting above average marks and a good score in interview, you'll get a decent rank. Yeah, first rank, top 10 all, it's luck also. Means on that particular year, let us take questions came in your favor, that what questions you know well. But to get intro call and all, it is easy only. It's not very, very difficult if you work in the right strategy, in the right way. And that's what doing. One thing what I observed in my experience of teaching, what many people lack is that consistency. Many people lack that consistency. Consistency means what? You have to plan accordingly, and you have to make sure that you'll meet those plans without expecting any results. It means your test scores might be coming less. Irrespective of that, you keep working. So one or the other time result will come. But what will happen with people is that they lose interest after 2-3 months. Why interest? Some people after 3-4 months they'll get the reality of the exam. Initially their perception will be only different. They'll only have seen TV, right? In TV topper will come, told, in house they would tell, ಅವರೇ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ ನೀವು ಯಾಕೆ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ, ಅವ್ನು ಯಾರೋ ಟೀ ಕೊಡೋನೇ ಮಾಡಿದಾನಂತೆ, ನೀನು ಟೀ ಕುಡಿಯೋನು, ನೀನು ಯಾಕಾಗಲ್ಲ. So what will happen is that they will think, okay, fine. But once they'll come here, once they'll understand the exam depth and width, some people will get scared. Self-doubt will start. Idu agutta namukku, is it possible by me to clear this exam? And when self-doubts will start, what they will do, they will start escaping. Escaping from what? If you write test only, you will get your true scores, where you lie. When you look at your score only, you are getting demotivated. So test ಬರೀದಿದ್ರೆ demotivation ಆಗಲ್ಲ. So that is not the right way to go. Test is an indicator of where you lie and what are the improvements you can make. And those tests, class tests, are not the end. They are only an indication that where you can improve, when you can write, etc. And that's why I told you regularly write irrespective of what is your score. Regular first few answers what you will write, it will be bad. It will be frustrating. So when I don't know, when I got my intro call the previous year, when I was not doing answer writing practice, when first 2 mains I wrote, I never practiced answer writing, just I was reading and going. Prelims I told, prelims I used to clear every time, because prelims I knew. That's why many people will think prelims is difficult. Actually prelims is not difficult. Prelims you need to get the pulse of the exam. If you know that how they're going to ask the questions, and if you have done your strategy in that regard, means going through previous year questions. Take for example, in many statements they use some. In any statement, when they use some, S-O-M-E, most of those statements will be correct. Wherever they use none, I'm not telling 100%, most of the times, statement will be wrong. Okay, last time they asked some mushrooms are used in this, some mushrooms are used in that. All these statements have been correct. Why? Because you need to be practical. You can say that when they're using some, means they're plainly trying to say that, okay, it is there. So question itself is there, it might be there, it might not be there. Usually that statement will be correct, because what will happen if they give that statement wrong? Now they will tomorrow challenge in court or something like that. None you can be sure. If you can say, if you know, either you will know. None means what? It is there or it is not there. So last time they've gone, there is no thermal power plant in water stressed areas. Use logic. See, one of the reason India is facing water crisis, etc., there will be some or the other water plant which is in a water stressed area. And they have told there is no thermal power plant in India which uses seawater. Gujarat, Rajasthan, they largely use seawater, especially in Gujarat. So in prelims, that's what I told. In prelims, if you are logically very strong, it is easy to clear prelims. If your basics are good, history, polity, geography, etc., and revised multiple times, don't think about the information what they dump in there. They will dump 100 information. If you take Andhra Pradesh Public Service Commission, recently which has been conducted, if you go into that prelims paper in polity, they have given a question on a whip. They have added so much extra information, they made it so complex. Now student will start feeling it is very difficult. Stick to your basics. Whip is not mentioned in constitution. Whip is not mentioned anywhere. They have given some act there. Whip is mentioned under this act. They are only trying to confuse you. You know your basic well, right? Right? Not this. And one statement they have given told, the central whip will be there. He will be a union parliamentary minister. Common guess, you cannot tell this particular minister only will become a chief whip. Again, in prelims, you cannot prepare that. Sir, where it is all this given? It will be not given. Many times you have to make your conceptual guess correctly. Last year also one question they asked on polity. They have told in this fifth, scheduled areas. They have told the CMs of scheduled areas will write report to the prime minister or home minister. Logically think basics of polity. Chief minister is an elected person. Home minister is also an elected person. You cannot subordinate CM to PM. CM is not subordinate to PM or the center. He is an independent authority. Usually if you see wherever reports, either governor will submit the report or a body will submit the report. Nowhere you find in polity where the CM is submitting a report to the PM or the home minister. Statement will be wrong. So this is not that you have read under fifth schedule or not. You need to stick to your basics understanding. That's what I told. If you are very good in basics of every subject, 99.99% prelims will clear. That is my, my experience with the exam. Because except my first prelims, I never failed in any prelims. Including I have written to forest. Means to write forest, you have to score more. That's why it's not that any extra content read, same content only, but you have to be good in the examination hall on analyzing things. That's why how you will gain that? You have to solve a lot of previous year questions. If you solve a lot of previous year questions, that experience will come. Last time also they asked one environment question. They asked which species holds stick and it will scoop and it will eat insects or something. They've given orangutan, sloth bear, and some 2 other animals. For this you don't need to read. If you are a person who knows what is orangutan, what is sloth bear, you got the answer. But if you tell, sir, I don't know what is sloth bear, I don't know what is orangutan, then some problem with your basic knowledge. Means your basics are not good. Orangutan is a primate which has fingers. Obviously only that can scoop. Sloth bear has claws. They can't use a claw and scoop it out very effectively. Answer is what? Orangutan. So close observation of statements, logical thinking will enable you to clear prelims. My problem was with mains. When first 2 mains I wrote, the only problem was that I did not write enough answers. I didn't do enough answer writing practice. And that is what I changed in my third mains when I wrote. I did lot of answer writing practice, and when I was writing my answer, I was showing to one of my friend who had already qualified. So that fellow used to scold a lot initially. I used to get frustrated because one thing is that getting evaluated by a faculty is different. Getting evaluated by a friend, okay, and who's junior to you, but he's qualified. So that is, so when he says that, like what else I have to write, because he was telling the point that you are not addressing the demand of the question. You are just writing what you know. And that was 1.5 months, it was highly frustrating because every time I wrote answer, it will used to rewrite and come back. So the 1.5 months, that time period where it was very frustrating, but then I started getting hold of an approach, and that exam when I wrote mains, I knew that I'll get intercall. That feeling will come. The moment I wrote my last paper, I know this year Pakka I'm going to get intercall because I knew my answers were good. And political science, that year when I didn't get intercall, I had scored 160. Now when I got intercall, I scored almost 284. 124 marks increased. It's not with extra reading or extra content. In fact, I reduced a lot of content, what I read. I focused more on writing answers, pre-prepared introduction, pre-prepared conclusions, link current affairs. So when I used to read current affairs, whatever notes I prepared, I used to logically sit and think, okay, this piece of current affairs, where shall I use it in my answer or in my political science? I'm reading, let us take for example electoral bonds which is going on. So now I'll link it to what? Electoral reforms in India. Understood? So that's what I told. With the right approach, you can score pretty well in political science. But as I said, in every subject, including political science, yes, one thing is very important.
your basics has to be very good. Plain and simple, anything in life you do, if your basics is good in that, you will obviously will excel in it. You take anything, cricket, why Virat Kohli is one of the greatest player? Because his basics is very good. That makes him a good player. Or if you take Mark Zuckerberg, why is one of the most what you can say richest man in the world, or one of the richest man in the world? Because he gets to the basics of everything. Like when he took over Twitter, in that regard, he went to the basics of how does social media work. Or that is like when he started SpaceX, he understood the basics of space technology, etc. So in this exam, when you read science and technology or you write any subject, you don't need to be an expert in that, but you have to know the basics of it. So here also, political science, don't worry about reading to MA and above level. The questions they'll ask in the exam is in intermediate between BA and MA. And one difference for those who are from political science background is that, let us say you are from universities here in Karnataka, you need to change your approach. Here it won't work in UPSC like how it will work in degree. Your degree answer writing skills are different. What is required in UPSC is very different. That is why if you see, usually who will do well in political science? All it is non-political science background people. Engineers, commerce students. Like last year first rank was a political science student, commerce background. Usually you see, it is largely those who are non-political science background, actually they do well in the subject compared to those who are from political science. Only those who do well is from JNU, etc. The approach is almost similar. But if you take Mysore University or Bengaluru University, here you can say the approach is completely different. So that is what we say. For those who are from political science background, the challenge is greater for them. For those who are not from political science background, why? To learn something new, it is easy. But to unlearn something and relearn something again, it always takes time. Got it? So that's why I said, we'll be going with basics of everything. Second one. So in class, any doubt what you can ask in class itself. Okay, let the class be also discussion oriented. Not only that I will start telling the topic, you start listening to it. Any doubts you get there in the class, then only you will ask. If I know, I will clear the doubt. If I don't know, I'll read and come and I'll clear it. But don't feel that, if I ask a doubt, what the other person might think, etc. See, ultimate purpose is what is the ultimate agenda of this program? To score above 300. At least if you aim for 300, you will score 280, 290. If you score first place, you aim for 280, 270, you will score 250. You know what? So aim for always the high marks. You will perform well. That is why now BJP, whether will score 400 or not, the slogan is what? Upki bar 400 chars or par. Which means if you aim for 400, at least you will get 300. That is always the strategy in life, that if you have to always aim for high, then at least you will end up somewhere in between. But first one, if you think scoring 350 is not possible, I will only aim for 250, 260, you will get 220 only in exam. So always have that extra thing. Whether really it is possible or not is secondary, but make an effort to do that. And there are people who have scored like 330 and 340 and all. And there was one guy in paper 1, he had scored 180. Okay, in 2017, I believe. I forgot his name. He scored 180 in political science paper 1. See, all you need to do is that we'll be also uploading toppers answer script of our test series and other people also. Keep looking at those answers. I'm not doing right answers. Keep looking at those answers. You formulate, okay, how should you write the answer? What is the strategy that you can use? What is the strategy they are using? This exam is all about skills, not about knowledge. It's not about intelligence. Here, the most intelligent person will not always clear the exam. The most skilled person will always clear the exam. Skill means what? For prelims, you need to have one set of skills. For mains, you need to have one set of skills. For interview, you have to have another set of skills. If all the 3 skills are in sync, obviously you're going to get the result. And mains is very important. Why? Because whatever you score in mains, that will determine your rank. If you score very high marks in main, even if you score moderately in interview, see this fellow, only 150 has scored in interview, but still he got IS. Why? Because his written score was good. So it should be either way. If your written score is also very good, your interview is also very good, there is a very high chance that you will come in top 50. Okay, but if you go wrong anywhere one side, then that is what the challenge will always lies. So interview now you can't sit and worry about it. All you can think about now is mains. That's what I told. Don't only worry about prelims. Prelims is just a qualifying paper. If you have passed prelims, you should be in a position to write mains. What is the use of clearing prelims and you are not read optional only, or you are not completed main syllabus only? That will be even more frustrating. That happiness will be only for 1 week. After that 1 week, what will happen? Now headache will start. Shall I read ethics? Shall I read optional? Shall I read GS2? Shall I read GS1? And the burden you won't be able to take. Then what will happen? Neither you will write answer, neither you will read correctly. Then you will write mains. You have wasted the 2-3 months. Understood? That's what I told. Make sure that you are ready with mains before you write prelims, because prelims is just qualifying. It's true that you have to clear prelims to write mains, but when you get a chance to write mains, you have to make it count. Understood? So tomorrow we'll be starting with Western political thought. I will upload the notes on the portal by today afternoon. So what we'll be starting is that first we'll be starting with what is political thought, what is political theory. First of all, what is politics? Okay, this will be doing in tomorrow's class. What is politics? What is a political thought? What is a political theory? And then we'll be going into what is the difference between political philosophy and political science. And then when we say Western political thought, we can divide into two. One is a Greek political thought and post-Greek political thought, the other scholars. So there we have to go into what are the characteristics of the Western political thought. Means it's not only about one scholar or two scholars. Largely if you take Western scholars, how is their political thinking? Okay. Similarly, when we do Indian political thought, then we'll make a comparison that how our political thinking varies from Western political thinking. So tomorrow will be, that thing will be starting with, and if time permits, we'll start with Socrates. Okay, not everything with Socrates, because Socrates is not there in syllabus. But to understand Plato, you need to know Socrates' idea of theory of knowledge, what he told about knowledge, how to gain knowledge, etc. And then we'll connect to Plato. Okay, so that will be the tomorrow's session. So any other doubt you have? Conservative politics means those political parties or those who believe in caste, religion, those who don't believe in social change, those who believe in status quo. That we say conservative. So if you take in America, we say the Republican Party, what is there? They are largely conservatives. We say the Democrats, what are there? They are largely liberal. So if you take in India, in that regard, we can say the religion parties like the Bharatiya Janata Party, or if you take even the All India Muslim League, to certain degrees culturally we say they are conservative. So that is what we mean by conservative politics. But again, as I said, economically it will be different. So if you look at the BJP, even though culturally they follow conservatism because of RSS influence in that regard, but economically the BJP does not toe the RSS line. Economically BJP is inclined towards what? Liberalism, means in economy, means privatization, globalization. So that we need to look at in terms of what? Is it in terms of political culture or in terms of political economy? In terms of political culture, yes, if you are arguing for status quo, etc., that we call as conservative. Radicals are who? Those who want to change the society, try to alter the present social structure, bring a new social structure, them we call as radical, like Marxists. They are radicals because they want to break down the present hierarchy and create a new society. So that's the difference between radicals and conservatives. So if you take French Revolution or French Parliament, when we say today right wing, left wing, center, right represents conservatives, left represents radicals, center represents moderate. They have qualities of both. Why that emerged was that those who were sitting in French Parliament in the right, they were all conservatives. They wanted the king to continue, monarchy to continue, the traditions to continue. Those who were sitting in the left, they wanted the monarchy to go. They wanted to establish democracy. They wanted to remove the privileges enjoyed by these, what you can say, aristocrats. Those who were in the center, they wanted certain reforms, but they wanted the king to continue. So that is why we say right, left, center. Right represents conservative, left represents radicals, center represents what? Middle path. Anything else? NCRTs were already uploaded on the group. So those NCRTs you need to go through. Okay, and especially the 11th and 12th NCRT, they are more important. Contemporary global politics and introduction to political theory. If you have not read other NCRTs, at least read those two. Introduction to political theory, contemporary global, that yellow color book. Why that yellow color book is very important, even though it's a very small book. That will help you a lot in mains. Political science and GS, paper 1. They've given non-aligned movement, they've given Cold War, they've given American hegemony, they've given globalization, and the content what they've given in that book is very good. Again, mind. So don't think that book is NCRT book. It's not. It is very, very useful for mains. Once you read it, you'll understand. Okay, that yellow color, 12th standard book, contemporary global politics. So these at least two books you have to read. Okay, for rest you just follow the class notes and buy a question bank. Have a question bank always with you, and the syllabus copy. These two things, and maintain two separate books. One for answer writing, the other for notes maintenance. Understood? Any other doubt? Online students, any doubt? See, all kind of fees, discount, etc. You have to speak with the academy. It is with the magazine monthly. It will be there monthly. So every month you can see from last year only. If you go to Insight's website in that regard, there is a column called as news to notes. So there you can download. But on Telegram channel also will release every month. Anything else? Okay then. So we'll end the session here. So tomorrow same. It will be timings will be fixed 7:30 to 10. That is 2.5 hours. Okay. Yeah.